Well, good morning, everyone. Here we are again in another day of Democrat shutdown. So I wanted to come out and just share with you some thoughts, answer some questions, tell you, I guess, reiterate the simple truths of how we got here. Those truths have been obscured just a bit because the Democrats are in a relentless effort to spin the facts. But it's always good when the facts and the evidence are on your side. And I don't want you to listen to the arguments of politicians. If you're watching at home, I want you to look at the real facts. And I'm going to try to here in a very abbreviated summary manner to present those to you. And the facts are very clear. Okay, so the first fact is by way of reminder, how did we get here? Why is Washington tied into a knot right now? Well, I became Speaker almost 2 years ago, and I was frustrated, as most rank-and-file members of Congress are, frustrated about how Congress really doesn't work that well for the American people. That's why people are frustrated about it. We don't spend money responsibly here. We haven't for many years. And the reason for that is because typically, for the annual funding of the government, it's done in a back room. Literally, there's a deal made by the top 4 leaders in Congress, and that's hoisted upon the members, usually at the end of the year, right before a holiday, in an omnibus spending bill. Sometimes the bills are thousands of pages long, and it's always said that few members have fully read it or understood it. That's largely true because they weren't involved in the process. So when I became Speaker, I've been doggedly determined to make this House and the Senate work again, to do right by the American people, to get the process, to rebuild the muscle memory, to get back to the way it is supposed to work. And what does that mean? It means that Congress is supposed to carefully deliberate over 12 separate appropriations bills every year. Why? Because we divide the spending of the taxpayers' funds into 12 categories so that everybody can go through that. And all the elected members, the duly elected representatives of the people, can come here and have a debate and a discussion. We do that through the Appropriations Committee, they're the specialists on it, the members of the House and Senate who work on it around the clock, 365, every day of the year. And then they put together a product. It goes to the full body in the House and then the full body in the Senate, and they work on that together, and they come up with the most efficient and effective way that they can build consensus around to spend the taxpayers' funds. Well, we started that process back this year, and I'm so proud to tell you that we're rebuilding the muscle memory. It's like pushing a boulder uphill, but we've got it done. And we worked 12 separate appropriations bills through the House Appropriations Committee. I mean, they worked hard in a bipartisan fashion, Republicans and Democrats. They worked on it steadily. We got 3 of those bills on the floor. We debated them on the floor. We passed them on the House floor. And we sent that over to the Senate. Meanwhile, the Senate passed 3 of their own bills off the floor. That hasn't happened around here in many years. And all of that process that I just described takes a lot of time and a lot of work and energy and effort. And our appropriators, while they were working in good faith, they ran out of time. Why? Because the end of the fiscal year is September 30th, not December 31. And so the clock was just running out. So what we did, because Republicans are in charge of both houses right now, is the responsible thing. Leader Thune in the Senate and I in the House, we sat down with our appropriators and we said, Let's come up with a simple stopgap measure to keep the lights on and keep the government open so that appropriators can finish this very healthy process for the people they represent. And so we put together a very simple, clean, continuing resolution. Why do we say it's clean? Because there's nothing to it. It's 24 pages. It's the bare minimum. It just says, keep the status quo, which, by the way, for all my Democrat friends, is the Biden-era policies and spending that we haven't been able to fix yet. We're in the process of getting appropriations done to repair all that, but we needed more time to do it. So in a bipartisan fashion, Democrats and Republicans got together and said, you know what? Fine, let's extend this until November 21st. The Democrats in the House agreed to that. That was the date. We put that bill on the floor. We passed it out of the House in bipartisan fashion. And we sent it over to the Senate. Well, now we expected, I thought, that Chuck Schumer would do what he's always done. The man has served in Congress 3/4 of my life, I think. And he has given impassioned speeches over the year, most recently in March of this year, that you have to fund continuing resolutions. You can't shut the government down because it's irresponsible and painful for the American people. He was right in March. He is not right today, which leads me to fact number 2. Fact number 1 was how we got here. Fact number 2 is why are we in this mess? Why did Chuck Schumer change his tune And why is he now saying exactly the opposite of what he said 6 months ago? A picture's worth 10,000 words, okay? This is a copy of the Washington Examiner. Zoom in on that, all right? If you can't see this at home, I just had this on my desk on a big stack, and I found it. This is published March of 2025, March 26 exactly. It's a picture of Chuck Schumer looking very upset, very angry, walking out with a box, and all the House Democrats depicted their character, saying that he's an enemy of democracy. Why is he an enemy of democracy? Because the far left base in the Democrat Party has turned on Chuck Schumer because he did the responsible thing, get the lights on. Why? Because they want him to show a fight against President Trump. So Schumer doesn't want to be in this situation again. So he said, my gosh, he got his staff together and he got the far left wing of the party. He said, what do you want? What do you want me to fight on? So they created a red herring. A red herring is a distraction. They decided that they would pick a fight on health care. Well, let me look right into the camera and tell you very clearly, Republicans are the ones concerned about health care. Republicans are the party working around the clock every day to fix health care. This is not talking points for us. We've done it. A big part of the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, was to fix health care. Health care is broken in America. It's too expensive. The quality of care needs to rise. We need more access for more people, and we have lots of ideas to do that. But that issue is for debate in the next 3 months. It always was. We have members working on that. The tax credit, the subsidy you've heard about that expires December 31st, there's a lot of thoughtful debate and discussion that has already been going on about that and will go on about that. But that's a December 31 issue. So Chuck Schumer is scrambling. He has to have an issue. None of their policies are very popular, so they decided to lob onto health care. And he decided to claim to all of you that that is the issue with government funding. It is not. Those are two totally separate things. The clean continuing resolution would simply keep the lights on so that the members in the House and Senate can have those debates on health care. We were always planning, and we have lots of ideas on the table on how to fix it, but we don't yet have consensus on it because it's very complicated. We have time to do it. The month of October is a critically important time for us to get the House and Senate working on that very issue, but they're delaying it because they needed a red herring. So in his desperation, we get to fact number 3. In his desperation, they decided to create the red herring. They decided to claim that this is all about health care, which the September funding issue never was. That's a December policy issue. He tried to create it as a September funding issue. And in his desperation, they hastily filed an outrageous counter-proposal. It is a wild wish list of big government liberal nonsense that we can't do. Their priorities that they crammed into this. Now remember, a simple 7-week stopgap funding measure, the CR, that we passed out of the House in bipartisan fashion was sent over. And Chuck Schumer filed a counterproposal. Now this is his words, not mine. These are not Republican talking points. These are the facts. 2 exhibits real quick, as I've shown you before. This is page 57, an excerpt of his bill, section 2141, where you see that right there that they want to repeal the health subtitle of the Big Beautiful Bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill, the Republicans got signed into law July 4th. The Working Families Tax Cut, we're so proud of that because it has so many amazing things for all the American people, a marquee piece of legislation. But among the most important were the reforms that we did to health care. Why? Because Medicaid, for example, is broken. Medicaid doesn't work well. It's underfunded and it was full of fraud, waste, and abuse. And we took our opportunity to fix that, and we did. So what did we do? We went into Medicaid and we said, we got to stop the waste and abuse. We got to make sure that illegal aliens are not on Medicaid. Medicaid is intended for U.S. citizens only, not illegals who break our law and come over the border. And we've got to make sure that young, able-bodied men who do not have dependents are working and not riding the wagon. Work is good for individuals. It's good for the communities they live in. It's good for their own well-being and for the people around them. And so we said, don't sit on your couch and play video games. By the way, also not a talking point. There was an AEI study, I think one of the organizations that polled this, and most of these young men who are not working are sitting around literally playing video games. Get back to work. So we put that in the law. And the big thing was making sure that an estimated 1.4 million illegal aliens are no longer riding that wagon either. Why? Because Medicaid had to be strengthened. Medicaid is intended for the elderly, the disabled, and young pregnant women, as I use an example, who are in difficult situations. They need the resources desperately, but the resources are being drained by people who were never intended to be there. And so Republicans got busy and fixed it. We put it in the big, beautiful bill. So, back to fact number 3, I guess I'm still on. Chuck Schumer files a counterproposal and says, we want to reverse all that. Well, among the effects, among the things that he would reverse is putting illegal aliens back on the program. Don't take my word for it. Look at the evidence. Over here at Exhibit B. This is the list of the actual provisions that would be reversed if Chuck Schumer's language was voted on and passed. Among those, it would end, see, these are the provisions, the Working Families Tax Cut Act, these are the provisions of our bill that did each of these things. We ended Medicaid funding for most non-citizens. They would reverse that, and it would cost American taxpayers, hardworking Americans, an estimated $6.2 billion. And you see, you just go down the list. The California loophole, you know what they did in California? Gavin Newsom and the team out in California? They expanded Medicaid to cover all able-bodied illegal alien adults. These men who could be working or whatever, I mean, they're not even citizens, never intended by Congress. They put that on the tab of the taxpayer. And so we reversed it. Chuck Schumer would repeal that. He would repeal those repairs, and this is what it would cost you. Do the math. I won't go through each line, but it's on the website, speaker.gov. You can pull this up. It amounts to $192 billion, $192.8 billion. So almost $200 billion that Chuck Schumer wants to put back in. Also, by the way, while he's repealing our health subtitle, he would also repeal the $50 billion that Republicans put into the bill to support our rural hospitals around the country. Why would Chuck Schumer do that? Because he's desperate for political cover. Let me keep going on this. By the way, these are enhanced COVID-era spending under Joe Biden for all this healthcare stuff. It was stolen, fraud, waste, and abuse, rife throughout the programs, and we fixed it, and they want to reverse that. By the way, this has always been what the Democrats wanted to do. You all remember, I know, the 2020 presidential election. We've all seen the video over the last week or so, where they asked every single candidate for the Democrat nomination on the stage running for president, is it your intention to give health care to illegal aliens who come into the country? Every single one of them raised their hands, including Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and that explains a lot of this. All right, that's the facts. And I went on all the shows. I've been on all the programs, as many as I can, to just lay this out. And on some of these programs have been followed by Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries back and forth. Not one time have they been able to refute what they themselves put in writing. I hope that you will ask them about this. I hope that you will ask them, if it is indeed not your intention, why did you say that? Why did you do that? This is a key part of what they put into their counterproposal, which, by the way, amounts to $1.5 trillion in new spending that they want to strap onto a 7-week, simple, 24-page stopgap measure to keep the lights on so we can do our work. Fact number 5, don't ask me, because here's the answer. Why aren't you negotiating? There's nothing for us to negotiate. The House has done its job. The House Republicans right now are working hard in their districts all around the country. They're meeting their constituents' needs. They're going and explaining and providing the answers, and they're trying to help them navigate through this madness. Some of our Republican colleagues, we had a big conference call on Saturday. Many of them are working throughout. They're making trips to all their rural hospitals in their district to help them navigate and access this fund that Chuck Schumer is trying to take away. Republicans are on the job. We want to improve health care. We have ideas and plans to do that, to fix the COVID level madness and adjust Obamacare so that it works for more people, so you have higher access to care and the costs are reduced. And so they're doing that right now, but there's nothing for us to negotiate or to debate right now, because the House already did that. The House did its job. We passed our bill. We did the job to keep the government open, and now it's on the Senate Democrats. And that's the final fact, and I'll take your questions. Fact number 6, hold on, wait. It's just a tease. The ball, I have to finish my case. Here's my closing argument, okay? The ball is in the court of the Senate Democrats. There's only a handful of people in the country who can solve this problem. There's 47 Democrats. Well, 46 and one who caucuses as an independent, I think. I lose track. But there's about 47 of them that caucus together as Democrats, okay? Here's the problem, remembering from civics. We don't have enough Republican votes to fix this because it takes 60 votes in the Senate to break this impasse, to open the government. There's only 53 Republicans in the Senate. We need some Democrats to be thoughtful and responsible and do the right thing, because why? Because real people are being hurt in all these political games. As Chuck Schumer is trying to cover himself and not have another series of articles like this, okay? That's why this is happening. There's a trend in New York that Chuck Schumer represents of electing Marxists. They're about to elect an actual Marxist as the mayor of New York City, the once cradle of capitalism, the largest city in America. It's stunning. And I think it's stunning to Chuck Schumer, too, because while he's a far-left politician, he's not nearly as far-left as these guys, as they want him to be. And so he's trying to find political cover, and in doing that, he's hurting real American people. Who's being hurt? Women, infants, and children on their nutritional programs that are now stalled. Veterans' health services that they desperately need and demand. Go down the list. We've got our troops, Border Patrol agents, TSA agents serving, trying to protect America without pay right now. Half the federal civilian workforce is effectively laid off right now, furloughed. They can't go to work. They don't have the money. Chuck Schumer, for political cover, decided to turn off the funds, and real people are getting hurt. FEMA services. I keep saying this because I live in a hurricane state. We're in the middle of hurricane season, and flood insurance policies cannot be renewed or purchased right now because Chuck Schumer's playing political games. This is real pain for real people. I can go on. There are articles written in the last 2 days. Some of your outlets wrote about low-income Medicaid or Medicare recipients, for example, who have been able to receive health care at home because we expanded that through telehealth and all that. All that is shut down. Yet people with autoimmune deficiencies who are also disabled, they cannot go visit the doctor's office. So thankfully, mercifully, they've been able to be treated at home. But all that just stopped. So people are canceling their health appointments with their physicians that is vitally important for them to stay alive, because Democrats over here are playing games. We have one plea and one plea alone. We need a handful of Democrats to stop the madness, reopen the government, so that we can get to these critical debates about the year-end policy decisions with regard to the further reforms to health care. Plain and simple, that's where we are. That's the facts, and everybody can draw their own conclusions. Don't listen to the words of politicians. Look at the actual evidence and the facts, and I think the case is very clear. Yes, sir, because you're standing up. Go ahead.
Jeffrey just challenged you to debate on the House floor today. Do you see yourself debating him, or would you be
when the poll says that about 13% of the people approve of your messaging, then you make desperate pleas for attention, and that's what Hakeem Jeffries has done. Look, my friend Hakeem had his shot. We debated all this on the House floor, as you know, before we passed our bill. He spoke for 7 or 8 minutes. He had all of his colleagues lined up. They gave it their best shot, and they argued, and they stomped their feet and screamed at us and all that. And still, we passed the bill in bipartisan fashion and sent it over to the Senate. The House has done its job. I'm not going to let Hakeem try to pretend for these theatrics. I mean, this is a Chuck Schumer decision. The ball is in the Senate's court now. The House has done this. We don't need to waste time on that nonsense. Those debates have been had. Hakeem is a friend and a colleague. I respect him, but we all know what he's trying to do there. Yes, sir. I'm anxious to get my folks back. And look, I want to bring the House back into session and get back to work, but we can't do it till they turn the lights back on. We need Chuck Schumer to reopen the government, and as soon as he does that, we'll bring everybody back here. Yes, back row. Yes, sir.
Why not call the House back into session? Because with respect to what you said at the start about the importance of passing funding bills, there are still 9 funding bills to pass in the House.
Yeah, well, remember, we've passed them through the House committee. They're out of committee, and we'll get them on the floor. And the appropriators have been working, and they are working as we speak, on trying to figure out which packages of bills we can move to the floor next. And there's some really good discussion that's been had. I myself have spoken to Democrat appropriators on the other side about these things and our commitments to move that and do it. I'll tell you, this is not some sort of confidential thing. I had I think a fruitful discussion with Senator Patty Murray about 2 days ago, a day or so ago. And I told her it is my full intention that if we break this impasse and we put these bills together, we have 3 of them in conference committee right now. Whatever the conference committee comes up with, I will put on the floor. I'm ready to go. But we've got to open government up so that they can move to that next level, so that conference committee can get that work done. That is small d democracy at its best. You get R's and D's, everybody in the room, and they hash it out, and whatever that final product is, we will move through the process. So we need to reopen government to do that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I know your contention is that the ACA subsidies don't end until the end of this calendar year. Do you disagree with the Democrats' position that these insurance companies are setting their premium rates now, and that people are going to have to make open enrollment decisions in the very near future?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they've been saying that some of the insurance companies will be sending out notices in early November. The last time I checked, it's October 6th. We have the entire month of October. We'll stay here around the clock to work through all these things, but we have to get government open again to do it. They're trying to obscure the issue. We are talking about a simple funding measure that the Democrats themselves have voted on over and over and over. Chuck Schumer, they voted on it 13 times during the Biden administration. This is the exact same thing that was on the floor in March when Chuck Schumer, I should have brought his video and let him give you the speech of why it was so important to pass it. Nothing has changed except the politics. So that's a political issue that they're trying to make out of it. Yes, ma'am.
Johnson, thank you. You mentioned that there is no negotiation to be had, but you also acknowledge that funding the government has to be bipartisan. So is the only way out of this for Democrats to completely drop their demands? Is there anything that Republicans are willing to give? And have there been any conversations? It doesn't even seem like the two sides are talking.
I'm so glad you asked the question. Why aren't you dropping all of your demands so that it makes it more palatable for Democrats to join you? I didn't put any on the CR. Leader Thune and I have tried to explain this a few times. There's nothing for us to negotiate. I cannot go to the CR and go, you know what, Democrats, you're right. Let me take out these 3 Republican priorities. I didn't add a single Republican policy or priority or preference to the CR. It is 100% totally clean. It is an exact status quo replica of what we're doing right now, which again is Biden-era policies and spending levels, to our great chagrin, but in good faith. I presented that because I didn't want to play games. We are responsible. We're not going to shut the government down for people who desperately need these services and all these things that I've said are stalled. And so we didn't, no gimmicks, no tricks. There's nothing that Leader Thune and I can go to Chuck Schumer and say, you know what, okay, we'll pull this off. Would that make it better? No, I don't have anything to give. I didn't put any of our priorities on the spending measure because, again, all we're trying to do in good faith is get 7 more weeks to finish that appropriations process that we've been all so excited about. Jake.
Who will, if you're not able to extend these subsidies, which is a possibility, it seems, who will own the political impact from that if health insurance does go up 200%?
That's putting the cart like a mile in front of the horse. Look, I believe that the subsidy issue, that's the December 31 issue, is a complicated one. It hasn't worked well. It's filled with abuse. We have a lot of ideas on how to improve upon it if indeed it goes forward. And I mentioned yesterday, there's 535 members when you count House and Senate, and there's probably 400 different ideas on how to fix that. But we need the next couple of weeks to have those vigorous, deliberate debates, which is how the process is supposed to work. So I'm not going to forecast how that comes out, and neither could any of you, because those debates haven't been held yet. And that's kind of the irony, because Chuck Schumer is saying something that he knows isn't true. He's saying, oh, you guys snap your fingers. You and Leader Thune go in the back room and tell us how that's going to be resolved today so we can reopen the government. That's impossible for me to do. I have to have the input of all of our members so that they can figure that out. So that's part of the process. Last one. Yeah.
Speaker, can you just talk a little bit about your reference to conversation you had with Senator Murray? Have you been personally lobbying any Senate Democrats to switch their votes in support of the CR?
No, they haven't exactly been ringing my phone off the hook, okay? I'm open, always have been for dialogue with anybody about that, but I think she wanted an assurance from me that what I'm saying is true and that we have every intention of moving the appropriations bills, and I said, yes, ma'am, of course it is. I say the same things privately that I say publicly. We are consistent, and that's why it's easy for me to stand up here and share the facts. When the simple truth is on your side, you have nothing to hide from. I'm just presenting this to the American people. This is the fourth time we've done that. I hate to drag you all out and go through all the details, but I've got to put on the case over and over because repetition apparently is the key to this. People are starting to recognize this is not a Republican shutdown. It is a Schumer Democrat shutdown. Again, why? Because they needed political cover. It's shameless. It is sad. Real people are hurting, and it needs to end. They'll have another opportunity this evening, and I sure pray, and I hope you all will, that a handful of additional common sense people on the Democrat side will change their votes, reopen the government, so we can get back to all these issues as we desperately want to do. Thank you all so much for being here.